Perfect. So yeah, no, understand AI and AI in the modern workplace. So now this exercise normally works best in smaller groups because in essence, we it's one of those where when it's presented, sorry, I'm having a bit of an issue. Has everyone got the right screen on there at the moment? Because it's not gone through for me.
We've got
So
understanding AI, this total screen, but not
let me
the master
try
one.
like that. There we go. That looks a bit better.
There we go.
So this exercise normally works better in smaller groups. I always enjoy going through this as it can often be a bit of a surprise to people, especially when they get the answers presented to them. So I would normally ask if you could ask everyone sort of to go through, categorize it in your heads, and try and work out where you would place them. What normally surprises most people is that they would put Netflix suggestions onto sort of the narrow AI, not realizing that it is an AI, and ChatGPT and Gemini into general AI, or what we categorize as strong AI, or of human intelligence. Yet all of these would be categorized as a narrow AI with a very task-specific scope, and that's the most important part there, is that it's task-specific. Sam Altman, which I'm sure some of you've heard in the news, is the CEO of OpenAI. He's kind of one of the chiefs of OpenAI and sort of innovated it. Doesn't actually believe that a strong AI, or a general artificial general intelligence, AGI, the acronym, will actually be about until 2030. Yet when I talk to most, they believe that there is already a human level intelligence in the likes of ChatGPT. Now, word of warning when it comes to talking about AI, it is acronym central. It doesn't really help but add to the confusion of AI. But one of the key acronyms that we'll be touching on today is LLMs, or large language models. A few of the big names here, like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot, are known as LLMs. So what is an LLM, or a large language model? Now, LLMs are a fascinating AI system. They're trained on vast amounts of text to learn patterns in human language. Unlike search engines like Google, which retrieve information from the web, LLMs generate responses by predicting word sequences based on their training. They create new text rather than just pulling existing content from the internet like Google and Bing. Now, a few examples of these, as shown here, include ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot. Each of them has its own unique capabilities and uses, but remember, these models are incredibly powerful tools when used correctly, as they have ways to unlock new ways of communicating and problem solving. Now, how best to use AI? Now, this is subjective to a degree, but there are key areas that you need to take into account, especially when it comes to security. Now, firstly, let's explore where it shouldn't be utilized. Now, most importantly, if you're handling sensitive or confidential information like personal health records or financial data, you should not be passing these through AI. The risks here involve data privacy and compliance issues, which I'm sure Steve will kind of touch on later today, which are crucial to maintain. Secondly, AI should not make high-stake decisions, such as those related to hiring, firing, or medical diagnosis. These scenarios pose risks of bias and a lack of accountability, which can lead to ethical concerns. Next, let's talk about the creative work that requires originality and emotional depth, like writing heartfelt messages or creating art with personal meaning. AI lacks genuine emotion. It's very good at mimicking it, but the human experience is necessary for these tasks. Also, unsupervised use of AI in critical systems such as aviation, surgery can lead to safety issues, and we see it a lot as well when it comes to IT. There'll be things that people think they've resolved with the use of AI, but unfortunately, it ends up making the problem worse. Now, finally, when context or nuance is crucial, like in complex negotiations or in, say, for example, medical therapy, AI may misinterpret the tone or intent, leading to potential misunderstandings. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. There are some great ways in which you can use AI, and I'm a full advocate for it. Now, it's worth taking into account, although some of these are obviously somewhat linked to what I mentioned in the slide earlier, such as obviously the repetitive or data-driven tasks. It's worth taking into account that, again, the previous rules still apply. So just making sure that you're not putting any confidential or personal information into AI. Now, let's explore where it shines. So firstly, AI excels in repetitive or data-driven tasks. It can automate emails, manage scheduling, and handle data entry, making our workflows more efficient. For instance, think of AI tools like Copilot, which can generate meeting summaries or draft emails for use. But it's worth taking into account that even if you are using those, such as note takers, you need to remember that if you are talking at any point about confidential information or stuff you wouldn't really want out there, that's going straight into the algorithm. It is trying to work it out. So it's always keeping that in mind. So although these are great, again, I mean, there are going to be situations where you think they might work, but you didn't realize you was giving data that you didn't really want to be giving. Next, AI serves as a very valuable partner in creative assistance. Now, I know I've said previously about anything that requires creative thought, it doesn't do particularly well, and it doesn't. If you expect it to be able to create stuff from scratch, which I know there is image generation and videos that you can now create using AI, but you've got to remember that that's based on the information that you're providing it. So it's a very much a case of you only get as good as what you put in, because of the way that AI works. So for creative assistance or brainstorming ideas, helping write content that you can't quite put into words, or just designing a presentation, sort of using ChatGPT or to generate a story idea, or maybe assisting in crafting sort of compelling narratives, you'll be doing the bulk of the work, but it kind of gives you that leg up almost that you would be needing in those scenarios. Now, AI also revolutionizes customer support. Now, this is something that you'll see all over the place, and they can be great. They can also be a bit of a plague. I'm sure we've all had that wanting to just reach out to your electricity provider, your utilities provider, and all you're being met with is an AI chatbot coming back saying, oh, do you want to speak to a human? And you could never get through. So it helps to be able to maybe triage stuff, but it's, again, it all comes back down to having that human interaction can be the difference when it comes to this. But for some scenarios, a chatbot is able to solve most problems. If it's a repetitive problem, or going back to obviously repetitive or data-driven tasks, it's the repetition, something that's easy, repeatable, something that's something, that isn't, if you've got a disgruntled customer that might be wanting to try and get in touch with you, putting them through a chatbot that doesn't have that emotional nuance of human behavior probably isn't the best option. But it can be a great tool, especially if used in the right scenarios. Now, when it comes to data analysis and insights, AI can identify trends, summarize reports, and visualize data. Again, it can do this amazingly well because of the way that it thinks and the way that it processes that data, especially if, say, you've got a document that you need to summarize, or you need to understand, okay, well, if there's no confidential data in there, but you just need to summarize a report, you can do that. And it can do it very quickly, and especially that's where it comes into it, and that's how it's marketed and advertised. But again, going back to the previous points, confidentiality is the key part. Now, one of the ones that is without fail, in my opinion, again, it comes back to the same problem, and I hate repeating myself, but it comes back to security. But translation, being able to receive a message, not understand it, and have AI translate it. Now, the obvious risk being here is that if it does interpret it incorrectly. Now, you can have that with any translation. AI tends to be a little bit better at it because of the way that AI works, but it's, again, it works really well in those areas. But I don't want to be all doom and gloom, because AI really is a useful tool, and it is something that can be very beneficial. But much like anything, it needs to be taken with, a pinch of salt, and trying to remember that with power, it can be quite dangerous if used incorrectly. Now, one of the key points that I wanted to make sure came across very strongly in this meeting was the hidden dangers of AI, the ones that aren't particularly spoken about, the ones that are very easily missed and forgotten. Because, again, I want people to come out of this thinking critically of AI, not in just its negatives or its positives, but it's just thinking critically and going, okay, well, how is it best going in? And one of the best ones about this is propagation of misinformation. As touched on previously, it is important to double check information provided by AI. Yet why? When people rely too much on AI tools like large language models, like we've touched on previously, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot, for research, they can end up with facts called AI hallucinations. These aren't as rare as you might think. Studies have shown an error rate of about 28 to 39% for models like ChatGPT 3.5 and GPT-4, and it has been found to be even higher in some cases. It's not just that AI is lying, it just predicts what sounds right, not what's true. If you skip fact checking, those mistakes go live, others read it, trust it, and share it, and suddenly misinformation spreading. Now, a real life example of this, in UK, there was a UK tax tribunal, a case Harbour versus HMRC, something that was publicised online, where Miss Harbour used ChatGPT to draft a submission. It included 9 legal cases that sounded legit, but none of them actually existed. The tribunal caught the error, but it shows how unchecked AI can creep into serious situations. AI makes things look convincing, and it does it incredibly well, but it doesn't verify facts. If you're writing a blog or new article, always double check before hitting publish. Something that a lot of news platforms do use AI, and if used properly, it can improve productivity and it can get things turned around very quickly. But again, as long as fact checking is being done, because AI does get things wrong. And I'm sure that if anyone's used AI, you've run into that where you're looking at something thinking, that doesn't quite seem right. And you question it. It then double checks and it goes, yes, you're right. That is incorrect. And it is clever enough to be able to notice that. But it's when it's not called up on it and it does then treat that as, oh, right, well, I was right. So again, double check your sources. Most of Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, when you ask for information, they will provide you with sources. Check out those sources, cross-reference with your own. No different to how if you was using Google. So if you were to Google something, you would cross-reference it. You go, okay, let me go check another source. Let me make sure that's right. And you would just have this bit of back and forth just to make sure that everything is as sound as it could be. So another key area, mental health and AI. Now, this is something where AI has been very new and very thrust upon us, and we wasn't quite expecting it to be as involved in the workplace as it is. There's a few key areas that, if I'm honest, are often forgotten about. AI is often marketed as a human versus AI. It's normally a man versus machine battle. When companies roll these out without explaining the purpose, staff can start to get a bit funny about it. They feel like their jobs are on the line. Even if that's not the case, all the best intentions are there, but because they weren't kept in the loop, immediate thought of, oh, well, I'm being replaced by a machine. I'm sure that's a thought that's crossed many a mind when you see AI being mentioned as much as it is in the news. Now, to make things more appealing, many services advertise AI features as a way to make experiences feel more personal. That sounds great on paper, but it also makes it easier for businesses to just make that switch to AI without thinking about how it might impact their team. So if employees aren't informed and involved, introducing AI can create a fear of mistrust. And even when the goal is just to improve productivity, people are starting to feel a bit insecure about their jobs. And more people are turning to tools like ChatGPT or Gemini for company, so for companionship. It's easy to feel like there's a real personality behind those lines of text, yet in reality, it's not. It does it very well and it is very convincing. There isn't, but there isn't. This became clear when OpenAI actually released ChatGPT 5. This was something that was kind of mentioned in the news quite a bit. Many users were like, they seem weird, they seem different, almost as if they were a friend that suddenly started acting a bit odd and a bit strange. And that was because of the changes they made. And they made these changes, to be fair, the big reason for it was cost, is to stop it returning information that it doesn't need to be returning, which was obviously requiring computing power, which was a cost of the company. So it made it more efficient and it made it better for the company, and in general it made the service better. But for people that were using it as a companion and as a friend, it would have felt like they was losing someone. And the problem is, if someone built an emotional connection with an AI and its personality changes for those reasons, it could probably leave them feeling vulnerable and isolated. While user safeguarding has improved, there have been cases where LLMs have engaged in harmful conversations, including discussing violence or even self-harm. There have been a few cases in the US, only very recently, where people have unfortunately taken their lives because of advice provided by chatbots that have been built off of these platforms. And it's something that is getting more regulated, and there is more control coming in around it. But it's, as is anything new, it's still, everything's catching up. And unfortunately, in most scenarios, when it comes to anything like this, it's normally a reaction rather than a proactive approach. So something bad tends to happen before it gets rectified. So just remember, AI can feel personal, but it's not a person. So keep an eye out for anyone that might be taking a little bit too much to AI and thinking that it's like a friend and a companion. So yes, just to kind of recap the parts that I just covered, remember, check facts. LLMs like ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini, they sound confident, but they don't always get it right. They generate text based on patterns, not truth. So always verify before you trust. Talk to your team if you're going to look at implementing AI. Or AI can boost productivity, but rolling it out without explaining why can make people worry about their jobs. Keeping them informed is the best approach. Now, and also watch for over reliance. AI feels friendly, but it's not a friend. If someone starts leaning on it too much, especially outside of work, it can create emotional risks. So stay aware, and that applies for friends, family, even yourself. If you kind of feel like, hold on, starting to see this thing as a bit of a friend here. It's it's something you've got to be very careful with, because it's not. It is just it is just a machine without seeming too cold and heartless about it. But yes, that's all from myself. Yeah, I hope it was informative. But now on to Steve. So, mate, if you wanna take over, all yours.
Thanks for that, Sam. Really enjoyed that. Especially, it's always good to learn more about different AI systems, and the mental health aspect is a key one that I think will start to come even more and more when people get more and more reliant on AI and AI technology. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to share my screen now. Don't worry, it's not death by PowerPoint or anything like that, but bear with me a second. Hopefully you can see this slide now. Not as slick as your presentation now, I must admit. I'm not using the good tools for doing it, just old-fashioned PowerPoint. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us here. My name's Steve, and I work for a company called Compliance Consultancy Services, or CCS for short. And as Sam's already covered, we all know that now that AI is an incredibly powerful tool. But like any tool, its effectiveness depends on actually how we use it. Some of us may be unsure of how to apply AI in our work, or we might be concerned about the security of AI systems, which Sam's mentioned, bias that's creeping in from some of the results, or the reliability of the actual systems. So today I want to introduce ISO 42001. And like Sam mentioned, there's a lot of acronyms, and I'll cover what ISO actually means in a little while, and I'll try and I'll have to use AI as an acronym, but I'll try not use any acronyms when going through this presentation if I can. And this standard provides a framework for using AI safely, using it effectively, and also ethically. And hopefully by the end of this session, you'll have an understanding of how ISO 42001 can help organizations and people gain confidence in AI, but also save time and work smarter. Now, we've obviously gone through what the benefits of AI are, and some people get really excited about AI helping them work less hours, while others are focused on using AI to become more productive, or as what Sam mentioned, worried about AI. But whichever way you look at it, it does have significant benefits, and AI has enormous potential. It can automate those tasks that were spoken around earlier, provide insight incredibly quickly, and help us make better and informed decisions. But as we've gone through, it's not without risk. AI can make errors, and we've spoken around the legal errors that was made earlier, and I know that we're going to send that information out after this presentation. But it can reproduce bias or pose security challenges if it's not managed properly. And if you're relying on AI for critical decisions without understanding how it works or ensuring that it's trustworthy, you can get into a lot of trouble. And that's why we need guidance, and more importantly, standards. And one of those standards is ISO 42001. It's designed to help organizations and individuals like us use AI safely, ethically, and also strategically. But if you don't know, what actually is ISO? So before I dive into sort of ISO 42001, let's just discuss what actually is ISO. And it's split into three areas. We have standards, we have management systems, and we have certification. Now, the standards are actually internationally agreed guidelines by ISO themselves that define best practices. And obviously, we're talking around AI here, but it also covers things like quality management, health and safety, information security, environmental, business continuity. In fact, there are around about 30,000 different ISO standards. And believe it or not, there's even an ISO standard for how you should make a cup of tea. And it is water in first, then milk, if anyone wants to look it up a bit later. So they're the standards. That's what defines how something should be done. And then what you do is you implement a management system which puts these standards into action. And that's through documented policies, procedures, processes, risk assessments. But it also looks at responsibilities that guide the day-to-day operation, and it also helps support a continuous improvement methodology. And then the final one, certification, is the formal recognition. And this is always awarded by a third-party certification body. And that's an organization that comes in and assesses whether you have a good management system, so those documented policies, procedures, and processes, and that the business or the organization is working to that standard, that it is actually following the guidelines dictated in the standard that have been documented in the management system, and that you're adhering to a specific ISO standard, whether that's ISO 42001 for AI or ISO 9001 for quality management. It doesn't matter, it's the same thing. And they'll make sure that the business is working to that standard. And that gives assurances to customers, suppliers, partners, and regulators globally, because it's a globally recognized standard. So that's actually what ISO is. But now let's get into ISO 42001. Now, this is an international standard for artificial intelligence management, and it creates what's called an AIMS, an artificial intelligence management system. Now, the standard outlines the requirements for AI, not only in development, but also implementation, the use of AI, and the maintenance of AI. It has very much a high focus on risk management, because obviously we've discussed the risks associated with using AI, and the standard addresses those risks. But it's also about transparency. Are the results coming back? Are they true? Are they ethical? Are there any biases in there? And it's to make sure that AI is both used ethically, but also responsibly when people are using it, or when businesses are developing AI systems. And it's built on a few core principles. You need to understand how AI makes decisions, which is key. How does it actually make those decisions? When you ask it a question, how's it interpreting that question, and how's it formulating the answer back to you? What are the roles and responsibilities inside the organization to make sure that it's monitored, and that if any mistakes are made, that they're caught early? It also addresses the potential risks to make sure they're identified and mitigated before they become a problem. And AI systems and the people using them to make sure that they are continuously evaluated and actually improved, because it's about improving how a business or an organization operates. And these principles are designed to ensure that AI is not just used effectively, but also responsibly. Now, let's just break it down into what the benefits are. And there are lots of benefits of ISO 42001. You'll know your AI systems are reliable and making AI decisions you can trust. It protects data and aligns your AI with relevant regulations, such as the EU AI Act. Now, that's obviously not applicable to us in the UK, but the UK AI Act is going to come in, which is taking a lot of guidance from EU. And if you are providing services that EU members use, then you have to meet the EU AI Act as well. It also minimizes the risk of unfair outcomes or mistakes in AI output, making sure that there are no biases in there, whether that's against sexuality, race, religion, whatever it might be, that no biases are actually introduced where unfair outcomes might be generated by AI systems and AI output. It also helps guide you to design, implement, and monitor AI responsibly within an organization. It streamlines processes and identifies risks early, which saves time on effort and remedial work carried out afterwards. It can help reduce development costs by preventing costly errors when AI systems are developed, inefficient approaches, by making sure that best practices, as in by the AI standard itself, are actually adhered to. It meets legal and ethical standards, reducing exposure to potential penalties and or fines, especially around the EU AI Act. Ensures all aligns with what your organization's values are, which is key within using AI systems. The AI systems that you're using, does it meet the values of your business? Is it correct for you as an organization to be using that type of AI system? And ISO 42001 can help with that. It encourages innovation. Obviously, we're not saying don't use AI, lock it down tight as you possibly can get it, but it's got to be controlled and used safely. So it's helping you innovate as a business, but without compromising that control or safety. And it provides a framework for assessing both potential pitfalls, but also the advantages of what AI can bring. So in short, AI is not just a compliance tool. It's a practical guide for trustworthy, efficient, and responsible AI that helps you as an individual and an organization unlock its full potential of using AI, but keeping the risks under control. So CCS as a business, we help organizations take these standards and then build management systems for them. We only use what's called an IRCA qualified consultant, which is the International Register of Certified Auditors. That's hopefully the last acronym I'll use apart from ISO and AI. And we've developed a simple 5-step process to help organizations become ISO 42001 certified, but also to help them maintain their certification status. And we start off with a gap analysis, where we'll go through all the controls, the policies, the processes within ISO 42001 and sit down with you as an organization and your stakeholders that own different areas of the business, whether that's legal people, whether that's operations, HR, systems admin. And it's what Sam spoke about earlier about making sure people are aware of what AI is actually coming in to do as a business, so they're not worried it's going to take their jobs and things like that. So getting the business involved and getting those key process owners involved. And we go through all the policies and processes within ISO 42001. So things like competence and training process. Do you as an organization have a process that ensures that the people involved in AI activities, whether that's using AI systems, do they have the necessary skills and training? Have they gone through ethics training, technical expertise to actually use AI systems? And you might well have that already documented and written down as a policy, or you might not have even thought about that as a policy. And we'll talk to you about the standard and then get how you would want to work within that gut framework to actually implement that standard as a business and implement that particular process. How do you handle data management, ensuring the quality, security, and the ethical handling of data used in AI systems? As Sam mentioned earlier about, people putting things into ChatGPT and then they're built into the large language model. How would you want to do that to make sure you're protecting your intellectual property or the confidentiality of your employees or the people that you're actually helping as a charity or an organization or a business? So we'll take all the processes, policies and procedures and just talk to you around them and understand how you want to work as a business within the framework. And then step 2 is we will then write up all of the documented policies, procedures, processes, risk registers, everything that you need to do and develop that management system for you. What we don't do is send you pre-written processes that make you change how you operate as a business. It's about using the ISO framework to build a bespoke and custom management system. We then come back and represent that to you to go, does this work for you as a business? These are all your new policies on training, on data management, on third-party management processes. Does that still work, or has anything changed in your business? We then move on to step 4, which is the adoption phase. Rolling out the training for the necessary employees to make sure they are using it in an ethical and with technical expertise, making sure the third-party management process is done, the data management process. And that's where you adopt the standard. Part of adoption of the standard is you have to do internal audits. And we provide internal auditor training, so you're empowered to do those internal audits yourself. And once you're ready, you go, right, Steve, we're ready. We've rolled out the management system. Everyone's working to the ISO 42001 standard. We'll then do a quick sanity check, and then we'll bring in an external third-party company to come in and certify you. Now, we use a company called QAS International, and they would come in and they'll do what's called a stage 1 audit. They'll review that documented management system that we developed for you and with you in step 2, and they'll go, yes, that meets the requirements of the standard. Then they'll go, right, evidence the fact you're working to the standard. Show me your training register that you've trained people on AI. Show me that you've done your internal audits, that you've discussed this at senior management level within the business to make sure that everybody is on board with implementing this standard into the organization. And then you get awarded the certificate, and you can then put that on your website and start to promote the fact you are using AI in an ethical and responsible way, and that you have the right checks and balances, processes and procedures into place to make sure that you as an organization are being as effective as possible in using AI, while at the same time reducing the risks that AI can pose to you as an organization. What we can also do is help with a managed service. If you don't have people with enough spare time to do the internal audits, we can do all that for you. We can provide a full managed service wrap where we'll look to improve the processes that we've already developed as they get rolled out into the business, look to areas to improve how you use AI systems. We'll do the internal audits that are required by ISO to gain certification. We'll do pre-audit support when you're coming up for your annual audit, ready for your next certification for the following year. And we can help even with management meetings, where we'll go into senior management meetings, discuss the standard, discuss how AI is being managed within the organization, and make sure senior management are all on board with that as well.